Ryan,
Who's Lily?
what are you talking about?
The texts, Erica. Who is she?
Empire from the ground up. At 30, I was a self-made billionaire. And Erica? She was everything I wanted. Beautiful, sharp, driven, CEO material in her own right. We'd met at a startup event years ago, and I remember the way she looked at me like I was the answer to all her problems. We built something special. A house in the suburbs of Chicago, an enviable social circle, and what everyone called the perfect marriage. People told me we were goals. They said, Ryan and Erica, they have it figured out. And I thought we did too. Our wedding was everything I had ever imagined. It wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect for us. We got married in the garden of a small venue just outside of Chicago, under a canopy of fairy lights. There was something magical about it, the soft breeze, the way she looked at me as we exchanged vows. For a moment, I genuinely believed nothing could break us. But then time did what it does. It started to fray the edges of our happiness. There were moments, little things at first, where Erica seemed distant. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. We'd still have dinner together, but there was always this invisible wall between us, a quiet tension I couldn't shake. I'd ask her how her day was and she'd give me a half-hearted smile, say good, and turn back to her phone. We didn't fight. There were no blow-ups. It wasn't like that. But I could feel it, like a weight in the room. The space between us growing with every day that passed. One night, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through emails, and she walked into the living room, phone in hand. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You okay? I asked, glancing up. Yeah, she said, her voice flat. Just tired. I nodded, though something in me didn't believe her. She always said she was tired. I had to wonder if it was more than just that. The thought nagged at me more than it should have. It wasn't that I didn't trust her. I did. I had to. She was my wife. But every time I looked at her, I felt like I was losing her bit by bit. Still, I kept telling myself it was nothing. Marriage wasn't perfect, right? We'd been together for almost 5 years. Maybe it was just a phase. But then came the night that shattered my perfect world. I was sitting in our study, working late on a project, when I heard the soft buzz of Erica's phone on the kitchen counter. She wasn't home yet, but the message was right there on the screen. It wasn't some random text. It was from someone named Lily. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know a Lily. Not well, anyway. My mind raced. Why was her name popping up? Was this some business associate she hadn't mentioned? I told myself it was nothing, just my mind running wild. But I couldn't ignore it. My gut told me something wasn't right. So, I did something I should never have done. I opened the message. It was simple. Nothing crazy, no scandalous emojis or anything obvious. But the words were enough. See you tonight. Can't wait to be with you again. I could feel my blood pressure rising, the heat rushing to my face. My hands shook as I set the phone back down. Ryan, what are you doing? I muttered to myself. But I couldn't help it. I had to know more. I knew Erica had been seeing someone else, and as much as I tried to convince myself I was wrong, the pit in my stomach told me everything I needed to know. When Erica came home that night, everything changed. She walked into the house like everything was normal, but the second she saw me standing there in the study, she stopped. Her expression shifted and I knew. I just knew. Ryan? She asked, voice trembling. I turned toward her, trying to keep my emotions in check. Who's Lily? She went pale. What are you talking about? Her voice was shaky, but she was already caught. She knew I knew. I stood up, holding her gaze. The text, Erica. Who is she? Her breath caught, and for a moment I could see the guilt on her face. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. I didn't need her to say it. The look in her eyes told me everything. She hadn't been the woman I thought she was. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. You've been lying to me, haven't you? Her hands trembled as she reached for me, but I stepped back. Ryan, please? But it was too late. The dream I'd held onto, the perfect life I'd built, crumbled in an instant. And for the first time in years, I felt completely and utterly alone. I'd always prided myself on knowing Erica better than anyone. After all, we'd been together for years. We knew each other's habits, our likes, dislikes, everything. But lately, something had shifted. It started small, subtle little things that should have been easy to dismiss. She'd come home late more often, no explanation, just a quick work stuff, and a tired smile. I used to love the way her smile would light up a room. Now, it felt like she was just going through the motions. I tried to shake it off. Maybe she was stressed. Hell, we both were. Running a company takes its toll. But one evening it happened again. Erica came home later than usual and I was sitting in the living room working on some reports. When she walked in, she didn't greet me right away. She just dropped her bag by the door and headed straight for the kitchen. I stood up, trying to hide the annoyance I felt. "You okay?" She didn't look at me, just nodded. "Yeah, just tired." I could hear the strain in her voice, like she was trying too hard to sound normal. I couldn't quite place it, but it didn't sit well with me. "We should talk later, okay? It's been a while since we—" "Not now," she cut me off too quickly. "I really just need to rest, Ryan." Her words felt like a wall. I wanted to argue, to push for something deeper, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I just nodded. "All right." But I couldn't ignore the feeling gnawing at me. The distance between us was becoming more obvious every day. It wasn't just the late nights or the avoidance, it was the little things she didn't say. The way she stopped sharing stories about her day. The way she barely even looked at me anymore when we ate dinner together. The next day, she left for work early again, and I found myself alone in the house, the silence feeling heavier than it should. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I noticed her phone, lying face up on the counter. I told myself I shouldn't look. I wasn't that guy, the one who snooped around. But something in me urged me to check. It wasn't a conscious decision, it was more like a gut feeling telling me something was off. I stood up, glancing at the screen. The message was there, a text that was just visible enough for me to see. "See you tonight. Can't wait to be with you again." The name was all I needed to see. Lily. Lily. The name sent a jolt through me. I hadn't heard that name in years. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but I tried to remain calm. It didn't mean anything. It could have been a business associate or a friend from the past. Hell, maybe it was someone from her old life, before me. I told myself it was nothing. But my hands were shaking. I couldn't help it. I picked up the phone. Her message thread with Lily was full of casual, friendly exchanges. And then I saw it. A few messages about meeting up, about her not being able to wait to see Lily again. My stomach turned. The logical part of my brain told me it could be harmless. I could feel the rational side of me fighting against the rising tide of suspicion. But the other part, the part that knew this wasn't how things used to be, felt betrayed already. I put the phone back down, trying to calm myself. This could be nothing, I reminded myself. I couldn't jump to conclusions without hearing it from Erica. But deep down I felt like I already knew. When Erica came home that night, she was more distant than usual. I was sitting on the couch, waiting for her, not sure if I was ready to confront her yet. "Ryan," she said as she walked in, her voice carrying that same edge of exhaustion. She didn't look at me. "I'm sorry. I know I've been—" I cut her off. "I know about the text." Her face went pale. She froze for a moment, and the air seemed to thicken with tension. Then she closed her eyes, like she was gathering the courage to face me. "Ryan." I stood up, taking a deep breath. "Who's Lily?" She didn't say anything at first. I could see her struggling to form words, but it didn't matter. The truth was already in the pit of my stomach. I didn't need her to say it. I just needed her to admit it. "Erica, who is she?" I repeated, more forceful now. She met my eyes. For the first time in a while, I saw her vulnerability. I didn't mean for it to happen. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm just so lost and I—" The rest of her words didn't matter. My heart was sinking too fast for me to hear anything else. Everything that I had been blind to, all the little signs, the emotional distance. It was all suddenly too clear. "Why?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know how," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head, stepping away from her. "You don't get to apologize now. Not after this." I left the room before she could say another word. The cracks in our perfect life had finally broken wide open, and I didn't know if I could ever piece it together again. I couldn't get the image of that text out of my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Erica's name, then Lily's. The two of them together. I had told myself it wasn't true. That it was all in my head, that I was just being paranoid. But now I couldn't deny it. I tried to focus on work, to drown out the noise in my head. But every time I sat at my desk, my eyes drifted to the kitchen counter, where Erica's phone still sat, its screen glowing. I was sitting there, my mind racing, when I heard the sound of the front door opening. "Erica." I tried to steady my breathing, but my heart was already pounding. I didn't even look up when she walked into the room. "Ryan?" she called, her voice softer than usual. "You home?" "Yeah," I replied, not looking at her. My words came out colder than I meant them to. She came into the kitchen, and I could feel her standing behind me, her presence a reminder of everything I had been trying to ignore. But the truth was right there, and I could no longer pretend. Ryan, she said again, her voice trembling. What's wrong? I turned to face her, and for the first time in days, I felt the full weight of the situation pressing down on me. There was no more pretending, no more avoiding the truth. You know what's wrong, Erica. She froze, her eyes wide with shock. What do you mean? I know about Lily, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. Her face went pale, and for a second I thought she might say something, apologize maybe, but she didn't. She just stood there, silent, staring at me like she was trying to figure out how much I knew. I saw the messages, I continued, my voice rising now. The text, the way you two were talking. How you can't wait to be with her again. She closed her eyes as if to shut me out. But it didn't help. The damage was already done. Ryan, she whispered, but the words were hollow. Don't Ryan me, I snapped, standing up. How long, Erica? How long has this been going on? Her gaze shifted to the floor. I didn't want you to find out. I was going to end it, I was going to fix it. Fix it? I asked, my chest tight with anger. You've been sleeping with her, Erica, and you think a fix will make it go away? She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. The rage that had been simmering inside me finally broke free. How could you do this to me? To us? I trusted you. I know, she said, her voice breaking. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry, Ryan. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated, incredulous. Do you think that's going to make it better? That sorry is enough. Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sympathy. I thought I could handle it. But I can't, she continued, wiping her eyes. I was lonely, and Lily, she made me feel seen. I don't know what I was thinking. No, Erica. You don't get to blame this on loneliness. This is on you. This is your choice, your betrayal, I said, my voice sharp, every word punctuated by the pain in my chest. Her head dropped, her hands wringing together. She took a few steps forward, reaching out, but I stepped back. Don't touch me, I said, my voice a low growl. You don't get to do that after everything. After what you've done. She stopped, her hand hovering in the air, trembling. Ryan, please. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to destroy what we had. You already did, I said, my eyes hard. I can't look at you the same way anymore. You destroyed it the second you let her into our life. I turned my back on her, feeling the sting of betrayal deep in my gut. I'm done. I can't do this. I can't forgive you. Ryan, please don't go, she said, desperation seeping into her voice. Please just talk to me. Let me fix this. But I couldn't listen to her anymore. The trust was gone. And in its place there was only pain and anger. I didn't say anything as I walked toward the door. Ryan, her voice cracked, but I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see the woman who had betrayed me, who had torn everything apart. I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap. But it wasn't enough to numb the pain. I couldn't go back. Not now. Not ever. And as I walked away, the only thing I could hear was the sound of Erica's voice fading behind me. But I kept walking. And I didn't look back. The days following the confrontation felt like I was drowning. Every step felt heavy, like I was walking through quicksand. I couldn't focus on anything. My business, the one thing I had worked so hard to build, was slipping through my fingers. My mind kept drifting back to Erica, to Lily, to everything that had fallen apart. I tried to bury myself in work. But it wasn't working. Every email, every meeting felt like an assault on my already shattered sense of self. I couldn't even bring myself to care about the numbers anymore, the figures I once obsessed over. Ryan, you need to pull yourself together, Gregory said, his voice cutting through the fog in my brain. I looked up from my desk, meeting his gaze. He was standing in the doorway, his arms crossed. Gregory had been my best friend for years, the kind of guy who always knew what to say, always had the answers. But right now, nothing felt like it could fix what had been broken inside me. I can't do this, Greg, I muttered, rubbing my eyes. I'm falling apart. My head's not in the game. Gregory walked into the room and sat down across from me. I get it. But this isn't you, man. Erica messed up, sure, but you can't let her take everything from you. Not your work. Not your life. I laughed bitterly. What's left, Greg? She's gone. She's with Lily. They both betrayed me. What's the point of any of this? He leaned forward, eyes intense. The point is that you're still here. You're still alive. And you can make this right. You just have to confront it. Confront it? I repeated, incredulous. What does that even mean? What, I should go begging for closure from her? Like that's gonna fix anything? Gregory's eyes softened. I'm not saying you need to beg her. But you need to talk to her. To hear her side. Get the answers you need. Holding on to all this anger? It's eating you alive, Ryan. I stared at the desk, feeling the weight of his words press down on me. He was right in a way. Every day that passed, the anger and bitterness consumed me more. But part of me still didn't want to let go of that anger. Part of me wanted to watch her suffer like I was. I don't know if I can do that, I said, my voice shaking with uncertainty. I don't know if I can forgive her. You don't have to forgive her right now, Gregory said, his tone firm. But you need to face this or you'll lose everything. You're already losing it, man. I rubbed my face, feeling the exhaustion in every muscle of my body. I don't know what to do. I keep thinking about getting back at her. Getting revenge. But, is that really what I want? Gregory was quiet for a moment, like he was giving me space to figure it out. Revenge will feel good for a minute. But trust me, Ryan, it won't fix what's broken. It won't make you feel whole again. I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the ceiling. It's hard to just walk away from all this. She was everything. I gave her everything, Greg. And now, it's like I don't even know who she is anymore. Or who I am. You're still Ryan Westbrook, he said quietly. You're the guy who built everything from nothing. You don't need her to be you. You need to find yourself again. You need to figure out what you want. The room felt too quiet after his words. I wanted to scream, to throw something. But all I did was sit there, feeling empty. My phone buzzed on the desk. I glanced down, hoping it wasn't from her, but it was just another work email. I closed my eyes, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling in my chest. Maybe you're right, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I need to confront her. Maybe I need to stop hiding. Gregory nodded, his expression approving. You don't have to make any decisions right now. But don't let this destroy you, Ryan. Don't let her win by tearing you apart. I let his words sink in as he stood up and headed for the door. I'll be here, man. Whenever you're ready. Once Gregory left, I sat alone in the silence of my office, the weight of his words settling deep in my chest. Confronting Erica. That was the last thing I wanted to do. The idea of facing her, of hearing her try to explain herself, felt like the worst kind of torture. But was it better than the alternative? Was staying angry and bitter really the answer? I picked up my phone again, staring at the messages that still sat unread from Erica. I hadn't been able to bring myself to open them. Every time I saw her name, my chest tightened. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she'd hurt me. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't help. I closed the message window and tossed the phone on my desk. Maybe Gregory was right. Maybe I needed to face her. Maybe I needed closure, not revenge. But could I do it? Could I face the woman who had shattered my trust? The woman who had been everything to me? The answer wasn't clear. But one thing was, I couldn't keep falling apart like this. I had to make a choice, whether to stay stuck in the past or to step forward into the future, no matter how uncertain it felt. The decision wasn't easy, but it was mine to make. I thought I could bury it all. I threw myself into work, hoping that if I just focused on the numbers, the contracts, the deadlines, I could ignore the ache in my chest. But it never worked. The pain lingered like a dull hum in the background of every email, every meeting. It's been a few weeks since I last saw Erica, since that night when everything fell apart. I haven't talked to her since then. And yet, I can't stop thinking about her, about Lily, about everything that's been taken from me. I know I need to let go, but letting go feels like admitting defeat. Every time I think about moving forward, the bitterness creeps in and all I want to do is scream. I want to punish them both, make them feel the way I feel. But then I remember what Gregory said. Revenge won't fix anything. It's just more poison, and I've had enough poison in my life. That's when I decided I needed help. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to admit that I was struggling. But after weeks of trying to fix everything myself, I knew I needed to face the parts of myself I'd been avoiding. So I called Alex, the therapist I'd been recommended to, and set up an appointment. I remember sitting in the waiting room of her office, the walls a soft beige, the air thick with that clinical scent of antiseptic and calm. I felt out of place, like I didn't belong there. But when Alex opened the door and called my name, I stood up and walked in. There was no turning back now. So Ryan, she said, sitting across from me, what brings you here? I hesitated. I didn't want to get into it. I didn't want to talk about Erica or Lily or any of it. But I knew I had to. I don't know where to begin, I said. I've been falling apart. I'm angry all the time and I can't stop thinking about this betrayal. Alex nodded, her expression soft, but she didn't say anything. Just let me speak. I keep thinking about getting revenge. I want to make them feel as bad as I do. But then I wonder if that's really what I want. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, Alex. I don't know how to fix this. Is getting revenge the answer? She asked. I stared at her, startled by the question. I don't know, I admitted. It feels like it would make me feel better. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like it would actually fix anything. Why do you think you're focusing so much on revenge? Alex asked, her voice calm but probing. I took a deep breath. I don't know. Maybe because I don't know how to let go of the hurt. I don't know how to forgive. That's okay, she said gently. You don't have to forgive right away. But you do need to understand why this hurt you so much. Why it's affecting you the way it is. I looked down at my hands, feeling the weight of her words. I gave her everything, Alex. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew what we had. But I don't even know who she is anymore. Do you think the way Erica treated you is a reflection of who you are, or is it more about her own struggles? Alex asked. I paused. I hadn't thought about it that way. I don't know. I guess it's about her, not me. But it feels personal, you know? It feels like she chose someone else over me. Like I wasn't enough. That's an important realization, Alex said. But let's talk about you, Ryan. What do you believe about yourself right now? What do you think this experience has shown you about your self-worth? I could feel my throat tighten, the weight of the question sinking in. I don't know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I feel less than. Like I wasn't good enough for her. Like I wasn't enough to keep her. Alex nodded, her gaze kind but firm. That's the heart of this, isn't it? You've internalized the idea that her betrayal somehow reflects your worth. But Ryan, your worth isn't determined by how someone else treats you. It's about who you are, what you stand for. And it's not just about your work or your success. It's about how you treat yourself, how you take care of your own heart. I sat back, processing her words. I'd never really thought about it that way. For so long, I had tied my sense of value to Erica, to my business, to everything external. I hadn't stopped to think about what I actually needed, what I wanted, and, most importantly, how I viewed myself. I swallowed hard, trying to gather my thoughts. But how do I fix this? How do I move on from this feeling of being not enough? Alex smiled softly. It's a process, Ryan. It won't happen overnight. But the first step is acknowledging that you're worthy regardless of what anyone else has done. You have to give yourself permission to heal, to grow beyond this. It's about building yourself up, not tearing yourself down. I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. A spark. A new path to walk down. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive Erica, I admitted. But I know I can't keep carrying this anger. I don't want to be this guy anymore. You don't have to forgive right now, Alex reassured me. But you do need to stop letting the anger control you. It's okay to be angry, but don't let it define you. It's time to take your power back, Ryan. For you. I nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling deep inside me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was starting to breathe again. I didn't have all the answers. I wasn't fixed. But maybe, just maybe, I was on the right path. I didn't expect her to show up. But Erica knocked on my door early one morning, her face pale and desperate, her eyes swollen from crying. I knew she'd been trying to reach me for weeks, but I'd been avoiding her calls. Still, part of me hoped she would give up. She didn't. When I opened the door, she was standing there, her breath shaky, her hands clasped together in front of her. Ryan, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please, can we talk? I stepped aside to let her in, even though every fiber of my being wanted to slam the door and walk away. I knew what this was. It was the conversation I had been avoiding, the one I had been dreading. But now I wasn't scared. I wasn't lost. I wasn't the same man I had been weeks ago. I crossed my arms and leaned against the wall, watching her carefully as she walked into the living room. She took a seat, not waiting for an invitation. The tension in the air was palpable, suffocating. I know I don't deserve this, she started, looking up at me, her voice raw with emotion. But I need you to know that I regret everything. I messed up, Ryan. I hurt you and I can never take that back. But please just listen to me. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Her words didn't mean anything anymore. Not after everything. I've been thinking about what we had, about how much I love you, she continued, her eyes welling up with tears. And I know I've screwed up, but I want to make it right. I'll do anything, Ryan. Just come back to me. Please. I let her words hang in the air, the silence between us growing thicker with each passing second. My heart wasn't racing anymore. There was no storm of emotions swirling in my chest. I was calm, clearer than I had been in ages. Erica, I said, my voice steady, I don't think you get it. You don't get to just waltz back in and pretend everything can go back to the way it was. I can't forget what you did. I can't forget how you betrayed me. I'm sorry, she said quickly, the words spilling out. I've said that over and over, but I mean it, Ryan. I'll change. I'll prove it to you. I can't live with myself knowing I've destroyed everything we built. Please give me a chance. I could feel my anger bubbling up, but I forced it down. You don't get it, I repeated, the words coming out sharper now. You don't get to ask for forgiveness just because you're sorry. What you did to me isn't something that can be fixed with empty promises. She looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. You're not even going to try to understand? You're just going to give up on us. I took a deep breath, standing up straighter. I'm not giving up. I'm moving on. Her face crumbled. What do you mean, moving on? I walked over to my desk, where a stack of contracts and papers were neatly arranged. I slid a few across the desk toward her. I've been building something while you've been off with Lily, I said, watching her closely as she processed my words. I've been quietly preparing to take control of my business. I'm not going to sit here and let you drag me down anymore. Her eyes narrowed, a mix of disbelief and anger flashing across her face. You've been planning to leave me? All this time? I nodded. Yes. I've been planning to leave behind everything that kept me tied to you. And I'm done. I'm done with the lies. I'm done with feeling like I'm not enough. I'm taking back control of my life, Erica. Her face twisted with a mixture of hurt and anger. So, that's it? You're just going to walk away from everything we had? Just like that. I stood my ground, feeling more solid than I had in weeks. You walked away first. I'm just doing what's best for me now. She stood up abruptly, her hands shaking. You think this is what's best for you? You think you're better off without me? I felt a small tug in my chest at the desperation in her voice, but I didn't let it sway me. No, Erica, I said quietly, my voice steady. I'm better off without this. Without you. I don't need you to define me anymore. I'm building something that's mine, something that doesn't depend on anyone else. I could see the realization in her eyes. She was finally getting it. But it didn't matter anymore. It was too late. I'm sorry, she whispered, the tears now flowing freely. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't respond. There was nothing more to say. I'm leaving now, she said softly, her voice barely audible. I'll leave you to your new life. I didn't watch her leave. I couldn't. The moment she stepped out of the door was the moment I closed that chapter of my life for good. I didn't want to look back. I didn't want to think about her anymore. The house felt quieter than it ever had before, but for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. I was free. And as much as I hated the pain she caused, I was grateful for the lesson. I had learned to rely on myself, to trust my own strength. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in control. I had made my choice. It wasn't just about moving on from Erica and Lily anymore. It was about reclaiming everything I'd allowed them to take. My life, my strength, my sense of self. I hadn't felt this focused in a long time. With every passing day, I grew more resolute, more certain of my path. Erica and Lily? They were fading into the background. My empire, the one I'd worked so hard to build, was what mattered now. It was time to make it mine, completely. I sat in my office, staring at the latest financial reports, but my mind was elsewhere. Darren. I couldn't stop thinking about him. He was always lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Every decision I made now seemed to trigger him. My every move was a challenge, a call to arms for him. Ryan, my assistant Sophia, spoke softly as she knocked on the door. The meeting with Darren's team is in 20 minutes. Are you ready? I looked up, meeting her eyes. There was no hesitation in my voice when I answered. I'm ready. The thought of facing Darren was no longer intimidating. It was just another business transaction. He thought he had the upper hand because he had more power, more influence. But I wasn't the same man I was before. I wasn't playing by anyone's rules anymore. I arrived at the meeting with Darren, his smirk already waiting for me. As we exchanged pleasantries, I could feel the tension in the room. His team sat across from me, eyes sharp, waiting for me to make the first move. He didn't know it yet, but this was my game now. So Ryan, Darren began, his tone dripping with that false politeness I hated. I think it's time we discuss your company's future. You've made some interesting moves lately. Risky ones. I'm not sure they're in your best interest. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes locking with his. You've been paying attention. I'm flattered. His smirk widened, clearly thinking he had the upper hand. Let's cut to the chase. I've been looking into your numbers, Ryan. Your decisions are unpredictable. And unpredictable people aren't usually good for business. I could feel his words scraping at me, but I didn't flinch. It's easy to judge from the outside, Darren. But you're forgetting one thing. He raised an eyebrow, challenging me. Oh? And what's that? I'm not the same Ryan Westbrook you used to know, I said, my voice calm, controlled. I'm not the man you can manipulate anymore. There was a brief pause as the room shifted. Darren's gaze hardened, but he quickly masked it with a grin. We'll see about that. We spent the next hour discussing numbers, figures, and strategies. But as the conversation continued, I could see Darren's facade cracking. He wasn't used to someone standing up to him so calmly. He was used to people caving, letting his charm and power sway them. Not me. Not anymore. When the meeting finally ended, Darren stood up to shake my hand, his grip stiff. We'll be in touch, Ryan. But don't get too comfortable. The game's just starting. I stood as well, shaking his hand with a firm grip. I'm not worried, Darren. You should be. As he left, I felt a strange satisfaction. The power shift was official. I could feel the weight of it in the air, the change in the room, the subtle shift in how people treated me. It was the moment I knew I was no longer the man Erica or Darren could walk over. Later that night, I sat alone in my office, the city lights twinkling outside my window. My phone buzzed on the desk and I glanced at it. It was from Erica. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it fade into oblivion, but I knew I had to confront it. I opened the message. Ryan, I know I've messed up. I've been thinking about everything, and I can't stop feeling like I've lost you for good. Please let's talk. I'm not the same person I was. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the screen. The anger that had been buried for so long bubbled up inside me, but I pushed it back down. This wasn't about Erica anymore. It wasn't about what she wanted. It was about what I needed. I took a deep breath, my fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. I'm not the person you once knew, Erica. I'm not going to let you back in. What we had is over. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. My chest tightened as I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen. There was a finality in that decision, a sense of relief. Erica had no power over me anymore. Neither did Lily. My life, my future, was in my hands now. The next day, I was sitting in my office when Sophia came in again, this time looking a bit more concerned. Ryan, we've been getting some unusual calls from the board. They're not happy with the way you're handling things. They want to meet with you. I wasn't surprised. I had anticipated some pushback from the higher-ups. Tell them to meet me in 2 hours. It's time to make it clear that things are changing. Sophia's eyes widened, but she quickly nodded. I'll arrange it. As she left, I could feel the weight of what I was about to do. The board had always seen me as a second-tier player, someone they could control. But that was about to change. I was no longer the pawn. I was the king. And I was ready to take control. As I walked into the boardroom, I felt the shift. The room felt different, like the air had changed. I wasn't walking in as the person they expected. I was walking in as someone who had found his power, and I wasn't about to let it go. The meeting went smoothly, with my decisions sending ripples through the room. They didn't challenge me the way they used to. They were finally seeing who I had become. By the end of the meeting, they were on my side. They had no choice. Erica and Lily were starting to realize that I was no longer the man they had once known. I wasn't broken anymore. I was whole. And I wasn't going to let anyone, or anything, stand in the way of what I had worked so hard to build. The power shift had happened. And I wasn't going back. I should have felt satisfaction. I should have felt joy watching Erica and Lily pay for what they did to me. But I didn't. I felt numb. It started with the news about Erica. The company she built, the empire she ran, all of it came crashing down around her. The board had found out about her affair with Lily, about the way she'd manipulated everything and everyone to keep it hidden. The details were messy, but it didn't matter. Erica was out. Publicly ousted. Her resignation letter made headlines, but it wasn't resignation, it was a forced departure. I didn't watch the press conference. I didn't care to hear her apologies or her excuses. All I needed to know was that the woman who had torn my world apart was no longer in control. But even knowing that didn't feel like a victory. My phone buzzed and I glanced down to see a text from Gregory. You see the news? Erica's done for. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. Done for. That was one way to put it. I responded, my fingers slow on the keys. Yeah, I heard. No reaction? He asked. I paused before typing back. What's there to react to? The truth was, I didn't feel anything. I'd expected relief, anger, maybe even satisfaction. But I felt empty. As if the end of Erica's reign didn't change anything for me. It was just one more piece of the wreckage I was trying to walk away from. Later that day, I sat in my office, the weight of the day still pressing on me. I had a meeting with my team, but my mind was somewhere else. Somewhere far from the business, far from the day-to-day grind. The door knocked before opening and Sophia stepped inside. She didn't look at me right away. She was holding a folder, but it was her expression that caught my attention. She looked worried. "Ryan," she said slowly, walking over to my desk. "There's something you need to know. Lily's been trying to sabotage us." I felt a cold rush hit my chest, but I kept my voice even. "What kind of sabotage?" Sophia handed me the folder. "We intercepted some emails. Lily's been leaking sensitive information to our competitors. She's been trying to undercut your business for months." I flipped through the folder, scanning the emails, the timestamps, the names of people involved. Everything pointed straight to Lily. She had been working behind my back, trying to destroy what I had built. I should have felt rage. I should have wanted to destroy her. But instead I just felt tired. "How do you want to handle it?" Sophia asked, waiting for a response. "Do you want to make this public?" I leaned back in my chair, the weight of everything hanging on me. "Expose her," I said flatly. "Let everyone know what she's been doing." The next few hours were a blur. The news hit fast. Lily's betrayal was out in the open, just like Erica's. The company's stock dropped, the press had a field day, and my competitors were scrambling to capitalize on the chaos. But none of it brought me any peace. I had one. Erica was out of the company, and Lily's attempts to destroy me were exposed for the world to see. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the closure I thought I'd get. I looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. What was the point of all this? Was this really what justice looked like? Watching the people who had betrayed me fall apart? A knock at the door broke my thoughts. It was Gregory again. "Hey man," he said, closing the door behind him. "You see what's happening with Lily?" "Yeah," I said, glancing at him. "I saw." Gregory sat down across from me. "You know, I figured you'd be happier. I thought seeing her go down would give you a sense of victory." "It doesn't," I muttered. "It feels hollow." He raised an eyebrow, clearly confused. "Hollow? What? She tried to ruin you, Ryan. She got exactly what she deserved." I rubbed my eyes. "Maybe. But I don't feel any better. I thought getting back at them would make me feel something. But now that it's happening, it just feels like a mess. Like something I can't clean up." Gregory was silent for a moment. "You don't need to clean it up. It's not your mess to fix anymore." I didn't say anything, just stared out the window again, trying to make sense of it all. I had been so consumed by anger, by the need for revenge, but now that I had it, it didn't feel like the triumph I had imagined. I had exposed them. Erica was out of the company. Lily was finished. I had fought back. But none of it felt like justice. It just felt like a chapter that was over too soon, too painfully. Later that night, I sat in my office, the silence almost deafening. I'd given the orders, I'd exposed the truth, and now all that was left was the aftermath. The anger that had fueled me for so long had faded, leaving behind something I wasn't sure I wanted to face. It wasn't joy that filled the space. It wasn't satisfaction. It was just emptiness. I had won. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something important had been lost along the way. I'd like to say I felt satisfaction when Erica and Lily's world started to unravel, but truth be told, I didn't. I had spent so much time focused on the idea of revenge that I never imagined it would happen like this, slowly, painfully, without me lifting a finger. It started with Erica's personal life. After the scandal, she tried to salvage what she could, but the damage was too deep. The media devoured her every move. She couldn't even step outside without being hounded by cameras. Her credibility was shot, and the company she had worked so hard to build had no choice but to distance itself from her. She tried to rebuild her image, but I saw her deteriorate with every new headline. One night, I got a call from Gregory. "You see what's happening with Erica?" he asked. I glanced at the television, where another breaking news story about Erica was playing. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound uninterested. "I've seen it." "She's done for, man," Gregory continued, his voice thick with a mixture of triumph and pity. "Her investors are pulling out. The company's about to collapse." I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. She did this to herself. There was no joy in it, though. No relief. Just emptiness. "What about Lily?" Gregory asked, cutting through the silence. "Any updates?" I chuckled bitterly. "You're not gonna believe this, but it looks like she's been sabotaging more than just my business." Gregory sounded almost impressed. "Wait, what? She hasn't been hiding behind the scenes for a while, has she?" I shook my head though he couldn't see it. Turns out she's been playing both sides. Some of her dealings with competitors of mine, leaked information trying to undercut me from every angle, well, it all came out. The feeling that bubbled up in me wasn't triumph, but a strange kind of detachment. It wasn't satisfying to see Lily's manipulations exposed for the world. It wasn't sweet revenge. It was just karma. The kind of justice that didn't need my involvement. Days passed, and as Erica's company fell apart, Lily's attempts to undermine my business were exposed in full force. They tried to spin it, tried to claim innocence, but the truth had already sunk in. The damage was irreversible. Both of them, having spent years tearing apart my life, now had their own lives crumble in the wake of their actions. I kept my distance. I watched, but I didn't get involved. No need for me to play a part in their downfall. They had already sealed their fates. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. I wasn't dancing in their misery. If anything, I felt the weight of it all. There was a strange peace in knowing that the universe worked its way around to balance things out. It didn't need me. I sat in my office one afternoon, looking over a few new projects, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. Are you seeing this? The stock's up another 5%. You're killing it out there. I read the message and felt nothing. Well, not nothing. There was a flicker of something, satisfaction maybe, but not the kind of satisfaction that would have come from revenge. No, this was different. I wasn't just seeing success, I was building something meaningful. Beyond the wealth, beyond the power, I had a purpose now. It was the first time in weeks I felt alive again, not from tearing down my enemies but from building something that mattered. It wasn't about Erica, Lily, or anyone else. It was about me. For the first time I was doing this for myself. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of everything settling in. I had done it. I had rebuilt myself, taken control of my future, and found something deeper than just success. I called Gregory later that night. How's everything going? I asked. You're killing it, man, he replied, his voice full of excitement. People are starting to take notice. You're untouchable now. I let out a quiet breath, the rush of validation and pride filling me. It's not just about the money anymore. It never was. Gregory was silent for a moment. You finally get it, huh? Yeah, I said, my voice calm, the truth settling in. I think I figured it out. As I sat there, reflecting on everything that had happened, I realized that the universe had a way of righting itself. Erica and Lily's betrayal had sent my life into chaos, but in the end, it was their own choices that had destroyed them. I didn't need to do anything more than let time take its course. It wasn't about winning anymore. It wasn't about getting revenge. It was about finding peace. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had it. Karma had done the work for me. I sat in my office, staring at the city lights outside the window. The world seemed to be moving, but I felt still, stuck in a quiet storm of my own making. The months of chaos, betrayal, anger, revenge, had led me here to this moment of strange clarity. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It wasn't even relief. It was something else. I should have been celebrating. I had exposed Erica and Lily for what they were. I had taken back control of my life, of my business. I had achieved everything I set out to do, but there was a weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. The phone buzzed on my desk, breaking the silence. It was a message from Gregory. You good, man? Everything all right? I stared at the screen, considering how to respond. I had always been able to rely on Gregory, but even now, as I looked at the message, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Something deep inside me was still unsettled, even though everything on the outside looked perfect. I typed a response. Yeah, just thinking. I sat there for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened crashing down on me again. Was it worth it? The revenge, the power plays, the manipulation? It felt good at first, at least that's what I told myself. I had been so consumed with the idea of making them pay that I didn't stop to think about what it was doing to me. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, letting the memories flood in. The nights of plotting, the adrenaline of each victory, each piece of my life falling back into place. It had felt like I was in control, like I had the power to shape everything. But now that the dust had settled, I could see it clearly. The toll it had taken on me. The constant anger, the endless need for validation. I hadn't been living. I had been surviving. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hall, and I looked up to see Sophia entering the room. She glanced at me, then at the desk. Everything okay? She asked, her voice gentle. I smiled weakly. Yeah, just reflecting. Sophia sat down across from me, folding her arms. You've been doing a lot of that lately. You've made a lot of progress, Ryan. Don't let it slip away. I know, I muttered, rubbing my temples. It's just, I thought all of this, getting back at Erica, taking down Lily, would feel better. But it doesn't. It just feels empty. Sophia didn't say anything at first. She let me talk, let me unravel the thoughts I hadn't fully processed yet. Maybe it's time to stop chasing something outside of yourself, she said softly. You've been looking for closure, for revenge, for something to fill that hole inside you. But none of it worked, did it? I shook my head. No, it didn't. I thought if I made them pay, it would make everything better. But it didn't. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes serious. You can't keep relying on things or people outside of yourself to fix you, Ryan. You're your own foundation. You have to rebuild from the inside out. I exhaled, a deep breath that felt like I was releasing years of tension. I don't even know where to start. Start with yourself, she said. What makes you happy, Ryan? What do you want now? It's not about the power, the revenge, the victories. It's about finding peace. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so consumed with my past, with everything Erica and Lily had taken from me, that I forgot to ask myself what I really needed. What I really wanted. I stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. The lights were beautiful, but they felt distant now, like a world I no longer belonged to. Everything had changed, but I hadn't given myself the chance to change with it. I looked back at Sophia. I've been so focused on the past, on what they did to me. I didn't even realize how much it was draining me. I didn't realize I was hurting myself by holding on to all that anger. Sophia nodded. You can't move forward if you're still holding on to the past, Ryan. You have to let go of what no longer serves you. The people, the anger, the need to prove something. Let go of it. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift just slightly. I think I'm finally starting to understand. Good, she said with a smile. It's a process, but you're on the right path. That night, I sat alone in my office, staring at my phone. The messages from Erica and Lily were still there, but now they seemed irrelevant, like remnants of a life I no longer wanted. I had nothing left to prove to them, to anyone. The only person I needed to answer to now was myself. I picked up the phone, hesitated for a moment, then deleted the messages. It was a small step, but it felt like a weight had been lifted. The truth was, I didn't need their apology. I didn't need their validation. I had built my empire, and now it was time to rebuild my life, piece by piece, from the inside out. I wasn't just going to survive anymore. I was going to live. And that was enough. I knew she was coming. I could feel it before she even knocked on the door. It had been weeks since Erica's last attempt to reach me. She had been quiet for a while, but now I knew it was time for the final confrontation. She had tried every angle, apologies, messages, even the pleading voicemails. But today I could feel it. This was the last one. I opened the door without hesitation, and there she stood, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. She didn't even wait for me to invite her in. She just stepped across the threshold, her hands nervously folding and unfolding in front of her. Ryan, she whispered, her voice shaking. Please let me talk to you. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside and let her walk into the living room. I wasn't going to fight her. I wasn't going to argue anymore. This wasn't about that. I know I've hurt you, Erica continued, her voice trembling as she sat down on the couch. And I'm sorry. I can't fix what I did. But I need you to know I never wanted to hurt you. Stop. My voice was calm but firm. You've said it all already. She fell silent, and for a moment, the only sound in the room was the soft hum of the air conditioning. She was waiting for me to say something, to give her some sort of sign that I was still that person she could manipulate. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I've heard your apologies, I said, finally looking at her. I've heard them over and over. And honestly, it's too late for them. Her eyes filled with tears, and I could feel the guilt starting to creep up on me. I wanted to care. I wanted to say something, anything, that could ease her pain. But I couldn't. Not anymore. She had broken me too many times. I was wrong, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was so selfish, Ryan. I'm sorry. I can't imagine how much I've hurt you. I don't know what I was thinking. I let out a slow breath, leaning against the wall. You weren't thinking, Erica. That's the problem. You acted without considering what it would do to me, what it would do to us. And now I'm supposed to just let it all go because you're sorry? She started, but I held up my hand to stop her. No, I said, the words coming out sharper than I meant. You don't get to fix this. You don't get to come back into my life just because you've realized your mistake. I've moved on. Her face twisted in pain. I can't believe you're saying this. I love you, Ryan. I love you and I've been waiting for you to forgive me. I shook my head, my gaze steady and unwavering. No, Erica. You don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have done this to me. I didn't mean it. It was a mistake, a huge mistake. But I swear to you it won't happen again. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the silence fill the room. It wasn't her words that I was hearing anymore. It was the years of lies, the betrayal, the emotional manipulation. Everything she had done to me flooded back and I felt the anger, but it wasn't burning like it used to. It was just there. Like an old wound that had healed over, leaving a scar. I'm not the same guy anymore, I said quietly, my voice steady. I'm not the guy who needed you to feel complete. I'm not the guy who would have let this slide. Her tears fell freely now. Please, Ryan, she begged, her voice cracking. Please don't do this. Don't throw everything we had away. We can start over. I'll make it right. I didn't move. I just stood there watching her, feeling the weight of everything she had put me through. You had your chance, I said, my voice quiet but firm. And you lost it. This isn't about us anymore, Erica. It's about me. And I've realized that I don't need you in my life. I watched her break, watched her crumble before me, but I didn't move. I couldn't. It was the first time I had truly been able to stand my ground with her. The first time I had realized that my life didn't have to revolve around her or her mistakes. She didn't say anything after that. She just sat there, her head down, hands resting in her lap as her sobs grew quieter. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Just the weight of what needed to be done. I'm leaving now, Erica finally said, her voice barely audible. I understand. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am. I nodded, stepping aside as she slowly walked to the door. I didn't look back as she left. I didn't need to. The silence in the house was deafening, but for the first time, it felt like peace. I wasn't waiting for someone else to make things right anymore. I wasn't dependent on her for closure. I had done the hardest thing I'd ever done, and I walked away from her. From them. And as I stood there, feeling the weight of the moment settle in, I knew, without a doubt, that I had taken back control of my life.